So that's my first observation, that in order to comfortably qualify the stage of mains examination, our minimum aim as far as ethics paper is concerned, it needs to be 125. These are the areas from where UPSC repetitively is asking us the question. Okay, so these are the topics they often ask. So now we know that when we are preparing these topics, we will be preparing in detail module, keeping in mind what are the basic issues which the students are facing. A very good evening to everyone. So here I am to talk about a paper which can make or break ranks. Yes, I am talking about none other than GS paper 4, that is ethics. It is one paper where examiner is not just testing our knowledge, but also our character, our choices, our worldview. So in this brief session, which I'm going to conduct today, I want to discuss with you guys my observation as far as this paper is concerned, few of the challenges which I often think that students are confronting, and finally, to provide you a practical plan which can be applied as far as ethics paper is concerned. So to begin with, let us talk about few of my observation as far as GS paper 4 in general is concerned. So if I'm talking about my observation, the first thing which I have observed is that if we don't want to be too much dependent on how much are we scoring in the stage of interview, then in order to find our name in the list, 800 is what we should target as far as our mains is concerned. So as to ensure that we are safely finding our name in the list, our minimum threshold, our aim as far as mains is concerned should be 800. Within this 800, if I am dividing it into three parts, that is GS, essay, and optional. And if I may say, I am not being very ambitious, so I would keep the minimum threshold in optional to be 250. The minimum threshold for essay to be 125. And for my GS 4 papers, I'm keeping it to be 425. Because anyway, we know that optional and essay both could be very unpredictable as far as marking is concerned. So I am not being very ambitious, but all I'm targeting is that let me score 800 in mains. That's my first observation. So if I am aiming in GS paper a score of 425, the major contribution in this score will have to be of ethics paper. We have often seen that the range in ethics paper is very wide. People are scoring somewhere between 80 to 150. So if not very ambitious, keeping the score as 150, and not being very pessimist that we are not scoring well, so keeping an average 125 marks should be our minimum threshold as far as ethics paper is concerned. It is easy to achieve the target if your targets are defined. So let's keep our minimum target as far as ethics paper is concerned to be 125. Anything above that is a bonus for us. But this is minimum. Beyond or below this, we should not settle for. Is that clear? So that's my first observation, that in order to comfortably qualify the stage of mains examination, our minimum aim as far as ethics paper is concerned, it needs to be 125. Clear? The next thing which I have observed is there are 4 pillars with respect to ethics paper. The first pillar is my syllabus. And as far as ethics syllabus is concerned, it is very detailed. For every topic, they have clearly deconstructed. They have clearly specified what is their demand. For example, if you are preparing for attitude, they clearly specify the content of attitude, the structure of attitude, the functions of attitude, attitude, behavior, consistency, social influence, persuasion, moral attitude, political attitude. They clearly specify. That's good thing about ethics paper, that exactly we know that if we are preparing attitude, if we are preparing emotional intelligence, if we are preparing ethics and human interface, then how are we supposed to go about it? So first pillar is that you have to be very, very sure about to ensure that you are going through the syllabus and every topic in the syllabus is covered by you. That is the minimum what we can do for our preparation. The second pillar is our PYQs. PYQ is actually the basic, how should I put it? The PYQ is one thing which is like sine qua non of our preparation, because it actually gives us a very specific and a very detailed insight with respect to what UPSC is expecting from us and what we can expect from UPSC in the coming examination. For example, if you go through your PYQs, you will realize that in past 10 years, this is our observation. There is a topic, moral thinkers, or the thinker-based questions. Every year, there are 3 questions. So in past 10 years, 30 questions have been asked from this topic. Now we know that this theme needs to be covered because every year you are getting 3 questions, and in past 10 years, 30 questions have been asked. Similarly, there is another broad theme, which is public administration. And from this, in past 10 years, 27 questions have been asked. Similarly, there is a topic, ethics and human interface. And from this topic of ethics and human interface, there have been 22 questions which has been asked in past 10 years. So do we realize that 70% of the section A is being asked from these 3 topics? So now we cannot afford to not prepare these topics in detail, because we know these are the probable themes. These are the areas from where UPSC repetitively is asking us the question. So first thing I got to know is from my PYQs is the broad themes that is getting repeated or is most probably being asked every now and again. The second thing which I realized through my PYQs is the pattern of the paper. By pattern we mean there are 2 sections. One is section A and second is section B. Section B is basically on case study. So total in section A, there are 13 questions, including the subparts, each question 10 marker, which makes it 130 marks. And in your case study, you have 6 case study, each of 20 marks, which constitutes 120 marks. So total you have a 250 mark paper. So what did I get the idea from? That whichever question is asked in ethics paper, every question will be of a 10 marker. That means we have to prepare ourselves for writing 150 words. We can't go beyond this. So when you have the clarity, it doesn't have a 15 marker. It only have 10 markers. And 10 markers have to be written in 150 words, and so we have to train our mind to write those 150 words within the stipulated time. Another thing which these PYQs only have told us is that sometimes they have a tendency of asking a question of the nature, write a short note on the following. And when they ask us the short note, there are subparts which are given. Now this entire question is a 10 marker, as we have discussed. So if there are subparts which is asked, then each subpart will be a 2 marker, or if there are 4 subparts, then it may be of 2.5 marks, depending upon the number of subparts it has. So again, it gives us an insight that we should also be prepared for writing the answers in 25 to 30 words. And through the kind of topics they have asked, for example, they have asked law and ethics. They have asked about code of conduct. They can ask you about environmental ethics. They might ask you cognitive dissonance, crisis of conscience. Okay, so these are the topics they often ask. So now we know that when we are preparing these topics, we will be preparing in detail, but at the same time, we have to be prepared with the possibility that they might ask us these topics in 2 or 2.5 marks. So we should be prepared with a very precise definition, and along with definition, we have to be prepared with the examples, so that without wasting any time, without thinking much, we are able to write the answer according to the demand of UPSC. Is that very clear? So this is all what we understand through PYQs. That is why we say PYQs are like sine qua non, non-negotiable. There is one interesting observation as far as PYQ is concerned. Not only the broad themes, as I mentioned, those ethics and human interface or moral thinkers, even within the broad themes, it also gives us an insight that what kind of questions UPSC is asking. For example, there is a topic in our syllabus that is emotional intelligence. Now, if you look at past 10, 12 years of paper right from 2013 onwards, you will see that ideally they're asking us questions of 3 types. 1, they're asking us questions on emotions. For example, happiness, for example, anger, hatred. So they're asking us specific questions on emotions. Second, they are asking us questions on emotional intelligence, the basic conceptual questions. For example, what is the concept of emotional intelligence? What are the building blocks of emotional intelligence? And can it be learned? So these are the broad nature of the question. And finally, there is one more theme under this, and that is application of EI. So whether it is application in administration, or let us say if you are trapped in a situation of crisis of conscience, then how EI will help you to resolve crisis of conscience. So again, it is an application-based question. So not only it gives us the idea of the broad theme, but within that broad theme, what kind of questions are being asked, this also we get an idea from the PYQs. So the second most important pillar is the PYQ. The third pillar under PYQ is basically the terminologies. It is very important for us to prepare the terminologies because see, one, if you prepare the terminology, you will have the understanding, the precise understanding of the vocabulary which is to be used in the paper. Second, direct questions are being asked. So without wasting much time, you will be able to write the answer, and that pressure of completing the paper would also not be very overwhelming. So it is very important that the terminologies have to be prepared. Now, let me give you an example that how terminologies should be prepared. The first thing that we need to prepare is the definition of the terminology. Second, you can prepare is characteristic feature of the terminology. You can also prepare the implication of those terminologies, followed by the examples. Now, here there is lot of scope of creativity. You want to take example from your scriptures, you want to take examples from literature, you can also take examples from the perspective of thinkers, or there can be personality-based examples. And if I'm talking about personality-based, it can be political leadership, it can be corporate examples, example from sports, administration, etc. But the more wide range of examples that you prepare, it gives you the clarity. Because when you prepare the concept, and at the same time you are also preparing the real life example, one of the major issue gets resolved. Because one of the challenge which I have often seen the students confronting is that the understanding of core themes is missing. Because many a times we just learn the definition without applying those concepts in the real life context, and which might be disadvantageous for us in case the application of the topic is asked. So whenever you are preparing a concept, it would hardly take few minutes. Prepare the application in the real world scenario. It will strengthen the understanding of the concepts as well. Trust me and mark my words, it really helps. Okay? And finally, if we are done with this, here itself, we will also aim, if it is a desirable terminology, then how we should aim at its development, and if it is undesirable, then how we should prevent its development. And finally, we can add some quotes to add richness to our answer. I'll give you a very basic example to make you understand what I am trying to convey. Let us take one example. Let us say, here our terminology is hatred. If you notice, I said that they are asking us questions on emotions. So let us say our terminology is hatred. So to begin with, the first thing that we are going to prepare is the definition. Let us say it is an emotion or feeling of extreme dislike towards someone or something. This is my basic definition of hatred. Once I'm done with the definition, I am aiming at its features. So can I say that hatred is a negative emotion? First feature. Second, it is disruptive of individuals' wisdom and their conscience. Not only this, there is a fear that we will get trapped in the cycle of negativity because of this negative emotion of hatred. So now we have prepared the definition and the features. The third part was the implication. Now, if I talk about the implication, one of the template which we can very easily apply is this. Implication at individual level, implication at societal level, implication at national level, and implication at international level. So you just need one point each. So can I say at individual level, hatred negatively impacts our cognitive and emotional development? Or if I want to apply the karma philosophy, so what you sow, you reap. So if you spread hate, what you will get in return is hate. And then you can quote various examples, whether you want to pick examples from history like Hitler, Mussolini, Pol Pot, Or if you want to pick up examples from your scriptures, Duryodhan. So the point here is it's totally your call what examples you're choosing. Similarly, at societal level, if let us say we are spreading hate in the society, so there is very high possibility of social conflict in the society. Conflict based on caste, religion, race, ethnicity, or let us say conflict between natives and migrants. Why? Because there is an element of hatred. It might lead to dilution of social capital. Similarly, at the national level, it goes against our essence of unity in diversity. It threatens the achievement, let us say, demographic dividend. And if I'm talking about international level, so let us say this feeling of hatred between the nation can create warlike situation. And if there is a warlike situation, it may also have a domino effect. Can't we relate it to the current scenario, what we are observing all around us? So again, these points could be written. So this is how we prepare the terminologies in depth. Okay? Once we are done with the implications, we have talked about the examples, we have talked about the features. So now do we realize that hatred is a negative emotion? We should avoid development of hatred. And how it can be done? Let us say it can be ensured through proper socialization. And if by chance the emotion of hatred has developed, then we should learn to manage it through emotional intelligence. When we are done with this, the last thing I asked you to add here was quotations. So let's add some quotes. For example, Gautam Buddha has said that hatred cannot be seized by hatred, but only by love. That is the eternal rule. Or we can quote Martin Luther King Jr. when he said that I have decided to stick with love, as hate is too much a burden to bear. So when I know that these concepts, there is very high possibility of being asked, can't I prepare such one-pager notes? So this is the third pillar of the preparation as far as ethics is concerned. Go nail the terminologies. And finally, the fourth pillar is nothing but answer writing. The more you practice answer writing, your handwriting will improve. Second, your speed will improve. Third, your contextual understanding of questions will improve. Your presentation, your creativity, incorporation of diagrams, flowcharts, tables, all of this will improve if you practice your answer writing. So this is my observation as far as ethics paper is concerned. Now, based on my observation, there are some common challenges which I think I have noticed most of the students confront. The first challenge, whenever I talk to the students about ethics paper, the first challenge is the debate between length versus depth. Often the students, they complain about paper not getting completed. So the length of the paper most of the time is a challenge for the students. And if somehow they manage to address the problem of the lengthiness of the paper, the another major challenge is how much in depth we have to go while writing the answer. So another major challenge which I have noticed among the students is that how analytical or how in-depth the answers needs to be presented. The second challenge which I have often seen among the students is lack of ethical analysis in the answer. Hands on your heart and tell me this. Sometimes don't you feel after writing the answer that you've written the answer which may be contextually right also, but that ethical connotation in the answer is missing? Sometimes you feel that. Sometimes it appears that as if we have written the answers which we would have otherwise written in GS paper 1 or let us say GS paper 2. I'll give you one example. There was a question once asked in ethics paper that despite increase in legal provision, violence against women is on the rise. Now, do you realize that the similar question can be asked you in GS paper 1 under Indian society? But if they have asked this question in GS paper 4, that means UPSC is expecting us to do the analytical aspect, keeping in mind the ethical connotation. So that ethical analysis sometimes becomes missing in our answer. So sometimes it feels that we have written too generalized answer. Sometimes it feels that we have written answer which is loaded by facts. Sometimes it may happen that the answer has become too theoretical. Again, it is only talking about theories without having that real life or the real world application available there. So that balance is missing in the answer. That ethical enrichment is missing in the answer. The third thing which sometimes I feel that it may be with respect to the case studies. That we are answering the case studies in a very superficial manner. We need to understand that if you go through the syllabus of case study, it categorically mentions case studies on the above mentioned topics. That means the theory part and the administrative ethics part. So that application of section A has to be reflected while you're writing case studies in section B. That is missing. It appears that there are 2-3 broad templates that we have prepared. There's no harm in preparing templates. Obviously, you have to do it if you want to write the case study in a stipulated time. Templates have to be there. But the application of templates should be such that it is not giving that mechanical vibe to the examiner. That वो एक जो कहते हैं ना एक invested touch नहीं आ रहा है और ऐसा नहीं है कि ये हो नहीं सकता. Obviously, you'll practice and you'll get that thing. The more you practice, the more you get the feedback, the more you work upon the feedback, you are good to go. Is that very clear? And the last thing or the challenge which I have observed is, as I have mentioned before also, fragmented understanding of core themes. What I mean by fragmented understanding of core themes is lack of real life examples. Sometimes I do feel there is lack of enriched content. मैंने कहा ना कि ethics is paper which is testing your character, your choices, your worldview. So it is somewhere a test of what kind of a person you are. And you must be thinking, नहीं मैम ऐसे कैसे होता है बेटा? जैसे examples choose करते भी हो या नहीं करते हो. The kind of value addition content that you are using to enrich your answer speaks volume about the kind of person you are. That is why we say that you should always do value addition. That adds that personal touch to my preparation. That enables me to own my preparation. It's my attempt. I have to own it. Is that clear? Okay? So now, broadly, these were my observations and few of the challenges which is faced by the students. Now, to address this, we have come up with the ethics module, which would be divided in two parts. One would be the theoretical part of ethics, which would be taken by me. And then there is administrative ethics and governance, which would be taken by Jatin sir. So this is how we have decided. I would be taking approximately 6 sessions and Jatin sir would be taking 8 sessions. And we have planned this module keeping in mind what are the basic issues which the students are facing. So let me just give you an example that we have planned that we will be conducting these sessions which will be based on broad themes which are repeated, popular among the ethics paper A. Second, our focus would be to provide you model answers, not because that you can copy them, model answers to give you an insight that what should be the nature of introduction, how there has to be a linking statement, how or to what extent in depth we have to go while addressing the body of the answer, and how to make our conclusions effective so that examiner gives us some extra marks. So our focus would be on the model answers. Along with that, we will be providing you value addition material, the one-pager notes, जो हम कहते हैं, with respect to these themes, the one-pager notes. For example, we would be talking about, let us say there is any particular topic, then examples of that particular topic, or quotes, or shloks, or dohas, anecdotes, data, whatever is required to enrich the answer, that would be provided. And finally, we will be focusing on making you practice answer writing in the class itself with major focus on the PYQs. So that by the time we are done with this module, your PYQs are also solved. That will put you psychologically in a better space. Is that clear? Okay. So let me just give you one brief example. I think through that hatred you have understood. Not this hate, aisa kuch nahi, hatred, the example which I gave, I think you've understood that how we are going to address the issues. Now let me give you a very basic example. Let us suppose there are 4 topics which are very important as far as ethics paper is concerned. That is VAME, value, attitude, moral, ethics. Take care. So we will make you understand that how this discussion starts from the concept of belief. We'll make you understand that how from core belief, based on preferences, we get our values. We'll talk about that how when these values are tied to an object, what you get is your attitude. And when values are seen in the prism of right and wrong, at individual level is your morals, at collective level is your ethics. We will make you understand these broad themes, and this is how we intend to proceed. So let us say if I have to talk about the first session of the module, I will be talking about these basic pillars of ethics paper: value, attitude, moral, and ethics. How they are interlinked with each other. What is values, what is belief? How values is different from beliefs. How through beliefs, when they are long-lasting, based on preferences, what you get is a value. What are the characteristic features of value? What is attitude? How values are different from attitude. When you see those values from the prism of right and wrong, at individual level is morals, at collective level is ethics. Then what is the difference between morals and ethics? So this is how we are going to proceed. So that on each terminology, your understanding is developed. We'll talk about the examples so that you can get an idea that how this content can be reproduced. And while discussing these broad themes, we will be focusing on few aspects. For example, diagrams. For example, examples. Overall, the focus would be on the presentation of the answer, so that we can achieve our minimum threshold, which is 125. We need to understand that ethics is not unpredictable. It is just unpracticed. So, if you develop the perspective, you polish your vocabulary, and you practice writing answers under pressure, trust me, this GS paper 4 can be a rank booster for you. So, on this note, I conclude this brief session. I hope it has added some understanding and value to your approach to the ethics paper. Take care. Stay blessed.